It seems like the people who will be aging and then wanting to move to smaller places, maybe the workers are younger and want to have a bigger place.
Right.
But then your house is appreciated, and you would have to be very selfless, I think, to sell it at a low price.
Right. Well, that's not necessarily, I think, the problem that individuals need to solve themselves. So in other words, I don't think that you need to sell your house for less than it's worth to somebody just to create an affordable housing unit. But I think that if we pool resources and put them towards affordable housing, then we can subsidize developers who are going to build affordable housing. So that's why we have low-income housing tax credits. That's why we had, before we abolished redevelopment, we had 20% of our redevelopment dollars were set aside for affordable housing. We have other programs from the federal government that sponsor affordable housing. So I think that's a more efficient way to do it. Than it's better that you sell your house for fair market value, you pay your capital gains tax, frankly, and then the federal government takes some of that money and puts it back into affordable housing. That's actually a more efficient way to do it than having you. It would be very kind of you to do it. You know,
I might, but my husband would.
I can't say as I really blame him. But, you know, I think that, again, these are, this is why, and again, this is my philosophical belief that we as a collective can work together to solve problems more efficiently than trying to do it one-off, one person at a time. Yes?
The traffic over the Richmond Bridge between 2000 and 2010 increased 5 times. At the Redwoods, I just heard this last week that we have 145 employees. For years, we've only had 10 who live in Mill Valley. And presently, 65 live outside the county.
Right.
So
right. So that's a good example of where, if your people who worked, in your facility lived closer by, then you'd be part of a community in more ways than one. And and they might have more time and energy for their jobs if they're not commuting from wherever. And there are real advantages to having everybody.
We have quite a few black employees, but you don't see any blacks living in Mill Valley.
Right.
Is there a black person here? No.
Right. Yes, sir.
So to that end, can you speak to any communities you think could serve as a particularly good example for a small community like Mill Valley that may want to stimulate more affordable housing and integrate that into a general plan? I mean, I love talking about these concepts. I'm very supportive of it, but how do we do it?
Right. Yeah. That's actually a really great question.
And I'm happy to put you on the spot with it.
Yeah, now I'm like, oh man, now you can tell how old I am. I have to think about that. Well, I think that's the whole goal of doing housing elements in your general plan. That's the purpose of the housing element, is to identify and where sites are. And then I think that Berkeley, for example, has worked really closely with its affordable housing development community, and it's set up. Berkeley's a bigger community and it has big employers, not just the university, but big employers. And they have a fee that they charge employers that they pay into a housing trust fund that then the city pays out to help subsidize affordable housing. So that works in a bigger community. In a smaller community like this, what you might do is consider pooling resources with other cities. And even some of the cities in the South Bay are talking about doing this. I sit on an advisory task force for the housing department in San Jose. And they've been talking about teaming up with Milpitas and perhaps Santa Clara and pooling money and looking at ways to support affordable housing, again, using a larger base. So it might be something that you could do as a county. San Mateo County has they have a housing trust fund, and they have a whole, they call it Heart of San Mateo, a whole organization that's really focused on supporting and facilitating affordable housing. So it may be, again, something that Mill Valley can't do alone, but if you worked in conjunction with other communities in the county, you could find some solutions. And I would start by looking at San Mateo County for that. I think there was somebody else.
I was just going to say, the library actually closes at 9, so we have to kind of...
So maybe I'll take 2 more questions.
I just wanted to say that there's one thing, when people start talking about affordable housing specifically for teachers, firefighters, police officers, civic workers, and so on, I'm a big proponent of affordable housing because I like economic diversity. But if you were to poll those teachers, civil workers, police officers, and firefighters, I think you would have a lot of trouble finding people that want to live in Mill Valley, but the people that have been yelling at them all day, well, frankly. And I mean, this is what they tell me. I don't want to live here. Are you kidding? I don't want to go to the store and have some parent jump on me about why my kid didn't get into the gifted program. You know, I mean, it's a reality. I'm not sure that they're...
Well, maybe the teachers from San Rafael would want to live here. And I'm only saying that half-jokingly,
that's a good idea.
rather than having to drive down from, Petaluma or something
Yeah,
like that. I mean, it's still closer, so it may not be the Mill Valley,
Yeah.
Well, it also could change the dynamic if you really feel like you're part of the community and not just serving that community.
Yeah, you're right in theory, and I grew up in a town where I lived down the street from 2 or 3 of my elementary school teachers, but things are different now. And
well, again, we can talk about the generalities or the specifics, and I think
I like your idea though, just like sort of
right.
in accordance with Jared's wishes with Mill Valley, maybe that's
Right. I mean, and so that's the point is that if you build affordable housing, you're not building it just for people who work in Mill Valley, but you're building it for people who work in Marin County. And I think that's the kind of the important concept. Yes, last question. Make it a hard one. It's going to stump the chump.
There's a Senate bill, I think it's 1220, for $75 of every permit that's granted
Right.
will be put into a trust fund.
Right.
Is that a regional or is that a state?
Statewide.
Statewide.
That would be statewide.
So that way.
Right. So that would replace, the idea of that is to create a permanent source of funding for affordable housing. Right. So is everybody familiar with this? You would, every time there's a real estate transfer, as part of your transfer fee, you would pay an additional $75, and that would go into a trust fund statewide that would then be used to subsidize affordable housing. That wasn't even a question. All right, one more.
So,
And then we
it's
gotta
my
go.
understanding that there's a requirement from Sacramento that if there's an apartment, let's say there's an old apartment house in
Right.
Mill Valley
Uh-huh.
that needs to be fixed up, maybe
Right.
greened up.
Uh-huh.
If it were done by a nonprofit group,
Right.
you could not count all of the apartments towards affordable housing. You can only count a certain percentage.
I have not heard that.
Don't they have, no, Eden has fire site.
Firesign? I don't know.
They may not be replacing all the affordable units because they may need the income from market rate units in order to make the deal work. But I don't think that's a government.
That wasn't the question. The
Okay.
question
It's
is,
a housing element issue. It's
Okay.
it's the way the Department of Housing and Community Development counts new units, whether they're new units or rehab units. And if they're rehab units, typically they don't count them because the idea is to produce more additional units. So you only get a credit for a percentage of those.
So it's not that they can't do all the units, it's that the city isn't getting credit for the production in terms of meeting its goals.
it doesn't seem quite fair in a place like Mill Valley that feels like it's built out. But
Over in the city.
the only choice is to go up, I guess, build more units.
Well, we'll be finding that out.
Anyway, thank you very much. You've been a great audience.